All right. We are live, gentlemen.
Hi.
So I'm here with Kyle Eberts and John Kowalski, our founder. We've got a pretty cool event coming up here in a couple weeks. And I said, you know what? This is cool enough and important enough that we should wrangle some folks onto a Facebook Live and tell the world about it. So we have our Stage 5 workshop that's coming up. When are the dates, John?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm getting on a
In case
plane.
you were curious,
2 weeks.
consultants also have busy calendars like
October 3rd
yourselves.
and 4th, I'm pretty sure.
October 3rd and 4th. Thank you, Kyle. Someone's on the ball here. Good.
Yep. October 3rd and 4th, so about 3 weeks from now. This is not the first Stage 5 workshop we've had. We've had a couple before. But before we get into talking about what the workshop is and the structure of it, I think we need to run uphill on something real quick. The title of it is Stage 5.
Mhm.
We call it a Stage 5 workshop, but John, what is Stage 5 in reference to begin with?
Well, first off, we're playing inside baseball with that term, right? It's it's proprietary to the way we look at systems and pivot. So, all right, we should back up here and get a little foundation. So in Pivot, we have a process by which companies assess the condition and quality of their business systems. And we've identified 48 systems that we think are important in this business to have. And they're divided into two categories. One is called revenue drivers. Those are all the systems that help you produce revenue. And the others are called internal controls. So there are 17 revenue drivers that we've identified. And when a company evaluates the quality or condition of those business systems, they rank them on a scale of 1 to 5. And the composite score from all those 17 assessments generates the number that says this company is a Stage 3 company, or Stage 4, or Stage 5, or whatever it might be, right? So that's where stage comes from. It's a reflection of just how far advanced the company's revenue drivers systems are in their business.
Okay. Thanks for the background on that. Now that, our Facebook Live audience is up to speed on what even Stage 5 is, why don't you tell us exactly how the workshop come about?
So there was a lot of curiosity in Pivot about, if you're a Stage 3 company, you naturally want to know, well, what does a Stage 4 company look like? Or what does a Stage 5 company look like, right? Everybody wants to be around companies that are farther along than they are, so they get a sense of where they're headed as a company and what that looks like, right? So we have one Stage 5 company currently in Pivot, and there's a couple that are just right there on the cusp, and they're working really hard to become a Stage 5 company. But Stage 5 companies mean that those guys have advanced their systems at the highest level that we've defined, right? And so Pivot members had approached us and said, hey, can we see what that looks like inside that company? And so we thought, well, that's a great idea. Let's do a workshop, actually a series of workshops, and allow our members to have a chance to see what those systems look like from hearing from the company itself and the department heads and the leadership team that actually built those systems and implement those systems. So the workshop really is an opportunity to find out how they built those systems, how they went from, say, a Stage 3 through Stage 4 all the way to Stage 5. What did that process look like? What was it like for the company? What kind of impact did it have on the company, right? And what sort of benefits do they enjoy today as a result of the advancement of those systems?
All right. Now that everybody in Facebook land is salivating and wants to show up, who's it available to?
Well, right now, these workshops are available only to Pivot members, right? We are, this is very proprietary in the sense of the language that we use. And for a company to open its doors and say, here, I'll expose all of my systems to you, right? That's kind of a big deal. They're sharing their secret sauce, if you will, with other companies. And so we restricted access to that workshop to Pivot members only.
Okay. So if we've got a Pivot member that watches this video and says, all right, I'm interested in understanding exactly what the mountaintop looks like, I want to go, what should they expect to learn?
Well, so this is the third in a three-part series of workshops by looking at systems in a stage 5 company. The first one was about a year ago, and we focused on the 17 revenue drivers last fall. Last spring, we have 31 internal controls, so we divided that into 2 sections. So we did one in May, we did about half of those internal controls, and now this fall, we'll be wrapping it up with the remaining internal controls in that segment. And so for the fall coming up, this one's a little bit different in the sense that it's going to be a lot of accounting and HR type systems. So we're going to be talking about things like the key indicators on the number side, right? In fact, let me look at my agenda here so I don't misspeak. I had that up. There we go. So we'll talk about key indicators, operating budgets, financial statements, work in progress accruals, cash forecasting, capital budgets. We get into some other things that are probably more interest to production folks. We're going to talk about purchasing systems, asset management systems, and maintenance programs. And then we get into the HR piece of it. We're going to talk a lot about the recruiting process for attracting new labor. So we have recruiting, the selections process, and their orientation. We'll talk about job descriptions, performance reviews, the coaching process, which we know in Pivot is quite important to all of us. We'll talk about the disciplinary processes, and then going back to production a little bit, material inventory systems, subcontractor programs, and then just the company's overall training program. So that's a lot of material to cover in 2 days. And so it's a fast moving workshop. What we basically do is we give a little overview of what those systems are all about and what Pivot recommends that you have as a basis for those systems. And then we allow the hosting company that's built these to stage 5 to talk about how they took it from a basic level all the way to stage 5 development.
Awesome. Now, a little more inside baseball. You've hesitated to do this. This has been a concept that's been kicking around for a few years now, but you've hesitated to do it until this year. Tell me why. I think that's important to know.
Yeah, no, that's a great question because we took a big risk in doing this workshop. If you're, say, a stage 2 company and you start seeing systems that are developed in a stage 5 company, you're going, ooh, shiny, new, wonderful. I want that. I want that in my company, right? And so there's a tendency for companies to latch onto things that they see in a company that's that advanced and then work to try to implement that into their stage 2 company. That's not going to work, right? Because you're bringing in a very advanced system that is not grounded or connected to other systems that are, not as well developed. They can't handle what that stage 5 system is capable of doing. And so we know that companies, when they come to workshops, they want to bring home those nuggets, right? They want to learn something and take it back and implement that in their business. And that's why they're there. So we have to sort of caution them that says, look, what this really does, if you're not close to this, if you're not a high stage 3 or stage 4 company that's ready to take on a stage 5 system, then what we can do is we can inspire you. We can show you what this looks like. We can provide you with a vision of what's possible in your company, what you are going to be aspiring to and shooting for someday as you develop. But we recommend that you build a solid foundation. So you complete everything at stage 2, then you work up, complete everything at stage 3, then stage 4, and ultimately to stage 5. You do this so that you have a solid foundation of systems in your business, so you don't end up throwing your system into chaos. I could probably go into some examples, like if you put in like a dispatch center and you don't have other related systems that are advanced enough to be able to handle a dispatch center, you're just inviting trouble in your company. You're inviting chaos. And so that's the risk that we took by allowing everybody to come and see a stage 5 company. So I get up, and I open the event and I give them this warning. I fire the shot across the bow saying, be careful, guys. This is really about inspiring you and exposing you to what's possible. And just as importantly, hearing the story from the company that did this development. What was it like for them to build these systems along the way? What did that look like? How did it impact their teams? What problems did they encounter as they were building those systems? What were some of the unintended consequences of building up systems, right? Because you're not doing every system at an equal level. You do this system for a while, you build it up, and then you do this one and build it up, and you've got a lot to play with here. There's 48 total systems in this mix. So you're trying to elevate them at some kind of a consistent rate. And we want to know what that was like. How did that company manage that kind of change? Not every company is capable of advancing like that. Most of the time they don't really have a program in place for systems development. They do what I said earlier. They go to a workshop and they see something interesting at RIA or RA or some other event, and they go, "Oh, I'm going to do that," and they just bring it in without any understanding of what that's going to do to the ecosystem that they have in their company.
All right. So now I always joke every restorer loves a good facility tour, right? It's kind of like the gateway drug, right?
Yeah,
In consulting, like, hey, you want to take a look at somebody else's shop? Follow me.
yeah.
Kyle, you've been to the past 2 Stage 5 workshops. Why'd you initially attend? Like, what resonated with you that said, you know what, I'm going to go?
Can I first ask, what's the inside baseball reference you two are referencing?
We're just using language that is proprietary to Pivot, that we're throwing out terminology like revenue drivers and internal controls and oversight and all these terms that we have. We refer to that as sort of inside baseball that the rest of the world doesn't really comprehend.
That's a fair question, though. I've always understood what inside baseball was, but I don't know the origin of it.
Gotcha.
The origin of the term.
I've never used it. I'm a huge sports fan, and I've never heard of that reference or used it before. So now I got a new one. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
well worth it today. I don't remember what your question was. What'd you ask me? Why'd I go to the?
Everybody at Crew is going to be talking about inside baseball and not.
Yeah, right.
What we're talking about. So you went to the first Stage 5 workshop. Like, you heard about it. Why did you say, look, this is interesting enough, I'm going to show up?
I mean, you're going to tell me I'm blowing smoke, but literally, if it has Pivot on it, I go. I mean, I have not been to an event, a workshop, a Zoom call that I haven't learned something in Pivot. We've been involved for, about almost 2 years now, and I mean, life-changing to our business. Literally, our business shouldn't even be called the same name anymore. So, I mean, that's why we go, because we pick up information every single time, and typically a lot of information, like life-changing information. Each time we leave one of these seminars, it's been absolutely fabulous.
You're gonna rebrand now. It's not gonna be Crew. It's gonna be Inside Baseball Restoration.
I've got so much money into our internet marketing and stuff. If I do that's gonna be expensive. Don't do that, right?
So I'm gonna challenge you to run back in time, Kyle. You attended the revenue. The first one was on the revenue drivers. Give me your key takeaway. What was one thing that you walked away with that you were like, man, that was so impactful?
Holy crap! You gotta catch, because I'm trying to think back to that one. I'm thinking of the last one, the one prior.
That was a year ago. Yeah,
it was a year ago. Gosh, what was our biggest takeaways from that? Shoot, now you put me on the spot. I don't recall.
Remember meetings? We talked a lot about meetings. That seemed to get a lot of attention a year ago.
Yeah, well, and then we went deeper into that, I thought, in the last one.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of overlap. I mean, there's not, the revenue drivers and the internal controls, they correlate a lot. But, I mean, after the meeting last time, we completely changed our meeting structure. So, I mean, that's been life-changing. We didn't do any huddles. We did none of that. We'd meet once a week, maybe, and our meeting structure is just flipped on its head. So it's been the information that goes back and forth between inside our company now is just between departments is just absolutely fabulous. It's been great.
So I'm always making sure that whenever I hit the live button, like, I want somebody to walk away with something they can learn from. What was the most profound or impactful change that you made on your meeting structure?
That we're having them, first of all. Yeah. But what it did, and the reason why we're having them, is because it puts substance behind when you should be having them and what you should be talking about. That was our problem. Our meetings, just like Death by Meeting, our meetings were so terrible, no one wanted to have them. So we quit having them on a regular basis. Yeah. So once we put context and structure behind how they should work, and we started to play with it, our meetings became fun. They became something that people took stuff away from every single meeting. So they want to have more meetings. Mm-hmm. Our people want to have these meetings now. Yeah. It's not, here, we're having a meeting at such and such a date, such and such a time, be there. There's none of that. It's when are we meeting next? What are we going to talk about? Because we spark so many ideas now that it's just one big brainstorming session after another every day. It's been a ton of fun. It really has.
Can I just add on to that? What I love about that, Kyle, is how much more engaging the meetings are, because they're not showing up to a meeting where the boss has this predetermined agenda.
They have the agenda. They're bringing the agenda, right?
Yeah. The agenda emerges out of the process of the meeting. You're right. The meeting process and the agenda emerges. So everybody's participating in that effort. So it's not like we're just going to go and just sit there for an hour and deal with whatever the boss wants to talk about. Like, nobody does that anymore.
The beauty is most of our meetings don't last an hour. We've got one meeting a week that lasts an hour. Every other meeting is extremely short. And what our biggest fear was, I don't know about fear, but one thing that we thought would be just terrible was our tech meetings every day. We have a huddle with our techs every single day, which they would usually meet at the shop, but it was a cluster of all clusters. Now there's structure to it. We do a small training almost every day, look over and circle pictures, the new jobs they're going to be on. They're way more comfortable because they're not walking to do a job blind, so they've gotten so much more, and they're asking better questions. We're able to give them knowledge. It's been the whole process throughout every department has just been fabulous. So I don't have enough good to say about it.
So what do you're coming to our next one here. What are you most excited to learn about?
Well, the problem is I don't know until we get into it. That's the beauty of them. Just telling you the agenda. Oh, that sounds great. It's the deep level dive, and then everyone's a business owner or high level management that's there. Mm-hmm. So they're asking questions you're not even thinking of, which spurs on it's just a big brainstorming session for 2 straight days. It's fabulous in that, right? That I don't even know what I'm going to take out of it, but I guarantee you we'll add something just dramatic afterwards. Some of my people don't like me go to these things because it's insane. I made them listen to Death by Meeting on the way home from Minneapolis. Last time we finished about half of it. I forced them to read it or let's do it within that next week. We had started implementing huddles that next Monday. Beautiful. So a week and a half in, and our huddles were off and running. It's been fabulous. But as much as, change doesn't love to happen right away by everyone, once they see what's happening, it makes a world of difference. So
Beautiful.
Awesome. So John, if one of our members wants to show up, what's the cost and how do they register?
I think it's like $5.95. It's not terribly expensive. They just go to the website and there's a link to click on to register. So it's important that we know who's coming, have an accurate head count. So we just ask them to fill out this silly online form to give us some basic information. They, put in their credit card to buy their tickets, and they're basically good to go, other than calling the hotel and making their reservations.
Awesome. Super low barriers to entry. Kyle, what would you say to a Pivot member who's like, I don't know if I want to go? What would you tell them?
I'd say you're just simply missing out. I don't know what else to tell you other than just hop on the bus and figure it out. Once you go there, I guarantee you will be coming home with information and great information that's going to change your company.
You know what, Kyle, this is another aspect of this that I hope is true. So let confirm or deny for me. I think even just in addition to the content that we talk about at the workshop, the material that we cover, what I hope happens is that members are able to build relationships with people even outside of their pivot group and really expand that circle of support by spending face time with people in that environment, right? I mean, we're having meals together, we're having workshop time together, there's great time together. And after that workshop, you can just pick up the phone or email somebody that you met at that workshop who's not even in your pivot group. So you're like multiplying your support system by engaging these folks at these workshops. Do you think that happens? Do you see a lot of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's an aspect that I just completely looked over. But I mean, that's maybe one of the most important aspects. I mean, at night, drinking a few beers or whatever together and just talking shop for the most part.
Yeah.
Because we all love our businesses, And the crazy part, being in this industry, we're all pretty like-minded for the most part, similar interests, similar type of people. So we, for the most part, all get along. And I'm also amazed. It doesn't really matter what group you're in Pivot. It seems like you can pick up the phone and email or call almost anyone, and everyone's just happy to help. We're all like a network of independent contractors that are just trying to make it in this industry, and we all want each other to succeed. So that part's been amazing. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Awesome. Well, John, Kyle, is there anything else you'd like to say about these workshops or Pivot in general?
I'm just excited to see everybody. It's we live in a world where we're all spread across the country, and we spend a lot of time like this, on GoToMeeting or Teams calls and things like that. And so, for me, it's an extra treat to be able to just have time to sit down with people face to face. I mean, there's nothing that can substitute for that type of experience, and we get so much done. It's just I'm exhausted when I leave those events. Your brain hurts, there's just so much processing information, so much socializing, a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in a couple of weeks here.
Kyle, anything to add?
I don't have anything additional. I mean, there's so much information. I'm not a note taker. I will have 4 to 5 pages of notes by the end of the 2 days. I mean, that just shows you how much information we're going back and too much to remember, certainly. That's why, if you're not coming, I feel like you're missing out. So.
All right. Now, with every one of these interviews that I do on Facebook, I always feel like it's insincere. I just ask a bunch of questions and never flip the script and allow you guys to ask questions of me. This is like my standard close, right? You guys got any questions for me?
Have you been to one, though?
I have not. And I'm
then what are you going to add to the conversation?
I have like super FOMO though. Come on, man.
Well, why don't you come?
You haven't
My
been to
brother's
stage.
getting married. I can't.
Oh, gotcha.
You've not been to stage 5, but you did do. You were one of the presenters for the strategic planning workshop we did last year, which was amazing. That was a lot of fun. So, all right, I got one question. How's the weather in Hawaii today?
I've learned you do not comment on the weather to people from the mainland because it makes them angry. So the weather's horrible. Don't come. It's better wherever you are.
Actually, this is a perfect time in South Dakota right now.
Yeah, actually, Midwest, this time of year in the Midwest,
it's really nice. Yeah, it's like 70 degrees. It's sweet. Just getting it off fall. Leaves are changing and stuff.
Hope it's this nice in Minneapolis in a couple of weeks. So no snow, no early snow.
Yeah, we're not gonna have snow.
It'll be like 30 degrees and windy as hell, John.
Right?
Watch.
Oh, there you go.
Your poor Phoenix blood is going to freeze.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for taking some time to talk about our Stage 5 workshop that's coming up. If you're a Pivot member, don't forget, log on to our website, grab the information in the immortal words of Mr. Eberts. Don't miss it. Don't be that guy.
Something about baseball.
Something about baseball. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Anthony. Kyle, see you in a couple of weeks.